Hi, welcome back to You Are the Answer. Today we're going to talk about macronutrients. And this is a fundamental that I think a lot of you are probably really familiar with, but because there's a lot of technicalities and nuances that go into understanding and fine-tuning a nutrition plan, I thought that before we get into those finer points of nutrition and performance, that we should work on that foundation that we talked about previously by starting with the basics, which is where your calories come from. Beginning with carbohydrates. 1 gram of carbohydrates provides 4 calories. Now, carbohydrates are basically really long chains of saccharides or sugar molecules that are connected together. The shorter the chain, the more simple the carb. The longer the chain, the more complex the sources, or the slower that it breaks down. Ultimately, carbs need to be broken down into their simplest form, which is a single saccharide molecule, and this is in order so that they can freely enter the bloodstream. When you consume carbohydrates of any kind, your pancreas releases a hormone called insulin, and this basically initiates the transport of carbs to be stored as fuel by the body. Of the 3 macronutrients, carbohydrates trigger the greatest insulin response. So the goal with carbohydrates is to consume just enough to support your training needs while minimizing your production of insulin. Most athletes need a mixture of simple carbs like fruit and complex starchy carbs like potatoes or rice. Just use common sense with this stuff, because you don't need fancy charts or graphs to know the difference between a handful of jelly beans and a sweet potato. Next comes protein. A gram of protein provides 4 calories, same as carbohydrates. Your muscles, though, rely on protein in order to repair and rebuild after workouts. Whole proteins like meat or your whey protein shakes are basically really long amino acid chains that aren't usable by the body till they go through a series of structural changes that are initiated by the digestive process. And this will basically break the amino acid chains down into singular amino acids, cleaving them apart into just one singular amino acid that can easily enter the bloodstream, where they're then transported and then used by the entire body for cell maintenance, repair, and growth. The best protein sources are really grass-fed beef, poultry, wild-caught fish, some types of dairy for those that can tolerate it, and quality protein supplements, which we'll talk more about later, but for now, the bulk of your protein should be coming from whole food sources. Last but not least is fat. Fat is the most calorically dense of all 3 macronutrients. In fact, 1 gram delivers 9 calories. Holy cow, that's a lot of calories, right? Regardless of what you've seen, heard, or read in popular media, fat is actually good. Not only is it good, but certain fat sources are absolutely essential to human life. So you need a mixture of saturated and unsaturated fats, especially those that are abundant in omega-3s. All right, so how much of this stuff should you consume is what you're thinking. Well, the short answer to that question is it's a range, and it's a pretty broad range. Protein should be somewhere in a range of about 25 to 35% of your total caloric intake, while carbs are about 35 to 50% of your total caloric intake, and fat should be somewhere around the vicinity of 15 to 30%. Now, these are just guidelines. There's way too many dieting systems to mention, and each one has its own macronutrient ratios. Besides, your goals are really going to be what dictates the actual percentages. For example, if you're trying to achieve fat loss, your ratios are going to be different than if you were trying to achieve a mass gain. If you're trying to recover faster for performance and high volume, or maybe for heavy loads and strength training, your ratios will be different there as well. For now, you need to focus on food quality. So shop the perimeter of the store and try to avoid the center store as much as possible. So that way you're eating fresh whole foods, and then you can fill in the gaps with the supplements that are going to help you with your goals. And we'll drill down deeper into each of the individual macronutrients in the next few videos. But for now, be honest with yourself. No matter how good you think you are with your nutrition, you can always be better. And remember, you are the difference between good, better, or best. Thanks for checking us out. See you next time.